Thousands of children are heading back to school in the inland provinces from tomorrow. Basic Education Minister Mfundo updates on the readiness to reopen schools for the new academic year.
We'll be receiving learners from inland provinces. In the past 2 years, we had a common day for reopening. But after consulting extensively, because the calendar is being consulted on 2 years ahead, we got from communities and for parents that they will prefer a different dates for the opening for inland and different dates for the reopening. So tomorrow we'll be receiving learners from the Free State, from Gauteng, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and Northwest, the 5 provinces. And then next week we'll be receiving the coastal provinces, which is Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, Northern Cape, and Western Cape. They are only going back next week.
Now, as inland schools head back to class tomorrow, they do this although some provinces battle with placement challenges. Basic Education Minister Mfundo says despite the devastating effect caused by COVID-19, the sector will strive to continue. She says almost 80% of pupils have managed to stay in school. For reaction, Xolani Fakude from teacher union Sadtu joins us now. Good afternoon, Xolani. Thank you very much for your time. The minister has basically indicated that they're ready for the opening of schools tomorrow. Are you, though, as a union, satisfied at this point?
Thank you very much for the question. First, let me greet you, Mfundo. Let me greet the viewers as well. We do note the statement by the minister, and our view is that we remain optimistic. The reason we remain optimistic, Mfundo, is because we believe that over the past 2 years, a lot of lessons have been learned. These would have been valuable lessons that can then help us to prepare as we deal with a lot of uncertainty in the current space. However, we need to raise a few concerns as well. What is becoming very clear, Mfundo, is that we still have got some challenges related to infrastructure. For instance, we know that in the largely and the historically rural provinces, you are always going to have some of those schools, and a number that cannot be neglected, but some of those schools that are still struggling with sanitation, water, and so forth. So what we are saying, therefore, is that we need to keep the conversation going. That is number one, that is what is important for us. But equally, we now need to see the public investment in education being equal to what is right now facing us. For instance, Mfundo, the DG, as he was talking today, he even mentioned that the number of enrollments would have increased by 300,000 roughly between 2020 and 2021. So if you've got about 300,000 more learners in the system, the first question therefore you ask is that do we have enough teachers? Do we have the adequate infrastructure as well to be able to service them as they deserve to? So what we're saying for is that we remain very optimistic. We are noting the trend, and we are on the ground. We are strongly and closely monitoring the situation. So yes, by and large, there might be some progress that is made, but challenges do remain, Mfundo.
I like, Xolani, that you are quick to speak on the infrastructure issue, because I listened to the minister and she spoke about preference, that what we're seeing insofar as the placing is concerned is that most parents would prefer the same schools. But really, one would then look and try to interrogate this preference. It's not based on flimsy reasons. It's based on infrastructure, excellent teaching, and the ethos of those schools. And this should be something that is standardized across the board. So my question to you is, do you think government has done enough to ensure that even schools in the location are at a level where parents can prefer them? Because right now it seems there's one or two, even if it's a pilot project, are there schools that have the same infrastructure as those in the former Model Cs?
You are asking a very important question, Mfundo, and this relates directly to the inequality within the education system that we have always spoken about. You would have seen, for instance, even before we even speak about infrastructure, of course, this is a very serious matter to us. But we are talking, for instance, about the idea of blended learning. digital platforms that are supposed to be accessed by all learners, not only those who are within the schools that are of a higher quintiles and a bit richer, and from more affluent communities. So what we are saying, therefore, is that we need to take this opportunity, Mfundo. That is what is important. We need to take this opportunity that is presented to us by COVID, even though that sounds otherwise, to actually make sure that we close the gap that has always existed. We've always said as a union that we've actually have had a pandemic even before the COVID pandemic. And that pandemic is in the education system, which is characterized by and large by serious inequalities. So that is why we are calling for, as a union, for greater investment in the education sector. That is why we must all be angry as a country when we see or hear of austerity measures being brought into the education system through the back door. That is why you've got so many vacant posts that are not even being filled, but yet we know that we've increased the number of learners and we need more teachers, we need more infrastructure.
Now, I must say, with every crisis, there can be a benefit, even with this pandemic. So don't apologize for saying there should be an opportunity here. But if you speak of that infrastructure, many have criticized or continue to criticize that, you know what, if we look at this rotational learning system, it speaks to a lack of some sort of innovation on the side of the department here, because some have even said, you know what, you could do some sort of a hybrid setup where you have either pre-recorded lessons on WhatsApp, for instance, and then you have those particular children with the gadgets and the data learning from home, while those without the gadgets can then come to school. But right now, you literally have almost nothing happening. If children are coming 1 week, the next week, there's absolutely nothing. So that lack of innovation, are you putting enough pressure on the minister or the portfolio itself? Because some say Sadtu in particular is very sympathetic.
Well, we are not necessarily sympathetic to the department. I can tell you, if there is one union actually that has always and very, very clearly articulated our positions, it would be Sadtu. We have been engaging the department, in fact, for years now, about blended learning. I mean, we started speaking about the fourth industrial revolution, and years ago already we we're posing the relevant questions to the Department of Basic Education. In fact, I can even tell you, Mfundo, that we meet every year religiously in what they call the Basic Education Lekgotla. We are always there, and we are always advocating for some of these policies. I like what we are saying about innovation. Now, innovation, Mfundo, must also be linked to the kind of a paradigm, the kind of an anatomy that we have for our education system. Now, in an education system that is obsessed with ticking the box, and assessments, just ticking the box, because this is what the Department of Basic Education wants teachers to do, without necessarily giving space for the necessary innovation, for a teacher to even apply his own intellectual autonomy and capacity, because the teacher would know best what every individual learner would be like. So what we are saying is that we need to be daring as a country. We need to be prepared to say that let us take this opportunity to renovate, to recalibrate, and really reimagine how we see education in this country.
Let's hope at your next gathering some of these ideas will find expression as you have expressed them to us. But beyond this, what is your take on the decision to no longer publish Matric results? Is it a good one?
Well, we don't think it is necessarily a bad thing, to be honest. I mean, we work very closely with the learner representatives in COSAS, for instance, and we know that this is also related. It is also linked to the new act about the sharing of information, etc. And we feel also that maybe it was actually putting unnecessary pressure on the learners. I mean, it cannot be that a learner is more anxious about others seeing their results than they themselves seeing their own results. So, and we have seen a number of instances whereby learners get into depression. We have even heard of instances whereby just by virtue of being ridiculed by not necessarily appearing in a particular paper, students even feel suicidal sometimes. So what we are saying, and we are very firm on this one, is that let us all talk as stakeholders. And right now what we are receiving is that learners are quite comfortable with that. And we're saying as a union as such, it is not necessarily a bad thing. What remains important for us is that we should invest in public education. And that is what we're going to continuously call for.
No, let's hope that that conversation is continued. Xolani, thank you very much for that. That is Xolani Fakude from Sadtu.